Alright, start off this episode, Old Mossy. We're gonna go around and do a whole bunch of fiddly bit stuff. Just, for creature comforts and whatnot. And then I think we're going to move on to some of the more important things we need to do, such as glow plugs, transmission fluid change, re-greasing and band-aiding all of the disintegrated ball joints, because there's about 10 ball joints on the front end of this car, and I think there might be one ball joint between the 10 of them that is still at least 3/4 of the way there. I think every single one of them has a full through crack in it, or is just gone. So we're gonna have to do something about that. I really don't want to drop $500 in suspension components and also buy a big boy 1/2-inch metric socket set, and also buy a big boy electric impact gun to be able to redo the entire front suspension and replace every single ball joint. Plus I also have to do some angle grinding and stuff like that, and take off all the control arms and release the spring and all this other shit I do not want to do. I would much rather just do something to just make all of the goo stay in there. And I think even if it comes to the point where I have to buy some universal joints and then just disassemble stuff down to the point where I have the ball joint shaft exposed, grease it up, slip a new ball joint boot on, and then slap it back together. And may do that instead of replacing them, just because the workload to replace stuff. I mean, I'm looking at $500 and 30 hours of my time, including all the time, or not including all the time it takes to go, oh shit, I forgot to buy that, and then have this thing sit on my slab on jack stands for another 3 months until I can get parts in. But okay, to start off with, I realized I never even checked to see how old the tires were when I stole these out of the dump. They just looked fine, and they had plenty of tread on them, and they were literally the only thing at the dump, so I just snagged them. So I'm kind of hoping they're not 30 years old. Thankfully, they're not. They're actually just barely young enough to still be in spec. It is December of 21 right now, and these were manufactured in, what is that, September, October of 2016. So we're still within 6 years by a year. So these guys are still good. So I'm not going to worry about the tires. Still got probably, I don't know, a third of the tread left on them. So I think we'll just run these until I get sick of them. And I think I can actually get a set of Douglas all seasons from Wally World for $200, and then just have Gorman's, throw them on the rims and balance them for another 150. So I can get whole new tires mounted, balanced, new valve stems, everything for $350. So I'm not worried about that at the moment. Thankfully this thing has the same tire size as a bunch of Nissans and Camrys and Hyundais and stuff like that. So tires are cheap. Alright, so something I'm going to try and do today so that I have, the brain space to just kind of think on it throughout the day is this side view mirror, because it is just fucking obliterated. They ran into something and has just snapped all the metal off in there. So I need to pull that off and just fix it. It also sucks because this is the electric one. So I'm hoping, as far as I'm aware, it's not moving, so it's probably, the motor's probably blown out or something, or maybe it's just disconnected. But thankfully, to get this off, it's pretty simple. I just got to get something under here, wedge this out. There's a little clip right there, pop that clip out, and then this comes up and out, and then I think it's 3 Phillips head screws, and the whole mirror comes off. And then I can just put some tape over that to match, the rest of the car. And then I can go take that into the garage and kind of work this trim up and off and everything, and figure out what I need to zip tie to put this back together. Because I think that's all cast iron or maybe cast aluminum. It feels like cast iron to me. Might be aluminum. I think it's zinc coated. But anywho, don't think I can't weld it. I don't have a welder, but I don't know how easy that would be to weld. But I think well, those actually kind of look like they're supposed to be like that. I don't know. But it needs help, and I'm going to figure out what kind of help it needs, and then I'm going to give it the wrong kind of help. Okie dokie. That is out. There's that guy. Wasn't hard at all. Just P2 Phillips head screws, and just needed a little plastic shimmy guy. Nearly snapped this guy off, but, we'll just ignore that. Alright, so we got the key on, and as you can see, we do have accessory power. And so if we touch the Fitly guy down here, we get nothing, not even like a click or a ding or a bop or a boop. So we're gonna have to bench test this with 12 volt and see whether or not it is this guy, or possibly both. Alright, so I'm at work and it's just kind of a slow day. So I've brought the mirror in and I've figured out how to get the front glass off. There's just one little ball joint right there that fits into this socket, so you just stick a pair of scissors or one of those plastic pliers in this corner and just the glass off, and then you pull it out this way because it's got these clips that fit down onto this guy, which is the electronic doohickey. So I'll test the electronic doohickey, but I think I've figured out the reason why we are all floppy, and that is because, see that spring right in there? You see that end? That is supposed to be connected to that broken bit that we saw before. That guy, it's supposed to be connected right there. Well, not there, that guy. See that? You see how it's been blown out? So I think I might be able to drill a hole further up the shaft and then make like a little link. Just get like some heavy gauge copper wire, or maybe about 40 strands of steel lock wire, and just loop that between, because I can just unhook the other side of the spring back in over here and push that guy out, so we can disassemble this as far as we can, reconnect that guy to the spring via probably about that much lock wire, and then try and hook this spring back up, and then that allows for the mirror to fold so that if you smack something, it doesn't break this thing off, but it broke that thing off. So anywho, if we can reconnect that spring to that guy, the mirror should be fine, and if it's not, then we'll just like run a self-tapping screw just like straight through the back of this and into here and call it a day. We can do this the nice way, or we can do it the ugly way. It's up to you, Mercedes mirror. Alright, slight tangential diversion. If you remember from the last episode, this speaker right here is in a rough way, and that one is in a slightly less rough way. I just want to pop these covers off real quick and just test the speakers with just a 9 volt and some alligator clips just to see if they function. Like this one, there's the little like cardboard like insulator that each lead connects to, and that has just disintegrated and the wires are just kind of dirty dangling. So this one might be fried. I think that one's still fine. It looks rough, but it doesn't look that rough. So I'm just going to hook them up to 9 volts real quick just to see if the speakers work. And I'm also going to get some electrical tape and just insulate this one, since the wires can kind of, you know, short out and whatnot. Also, I want to get the radio out because I want to see what the hell the harness situation is and how that's wired, and whether or not I'm going to be able to just like easily plug and play with a new radio. However, I don't have the special Sony keys to get this thing out, and it's not like other radios where you can just like stab a couple of knives in it. You got to have specially shaped keys to be able to pull the thing out. So I'm hoping I can take the angle grinder and just destroy a hacksaw blade and get something approximate to a couple of keys that I can get the radio out with, because I can order the things offline, but I mean, it's like the week before Christmas, and I would like to have this thing out of here so that if need be, I can run and like grab a radio if I see one used for sale somewhere and know that it's going to work and not waste my money. So I would like to try and get the radio out just so I know what the hell I need to order for wires and harnesses and all that stuff now. So we'll do that later, but right now we're just going to pop speakers out and look at them, and then we'll go test the power window inside with the jumper leads and 12 volt battery I got, and then we'll see whether or not that guy's working. If that guy's working, then we know that switch is doing something funny and we can look into that. But we can at least, I was able to just yank on the thing and adjust it, so we can manhandle that mirror into shape. I just need to get in there and get it to stay in place, tie that spring off to that that arm again. But we'll get on that in a second. I can do that by candlelight. I can do this by candlelight too, but I'm doing this now because it's faster. Fuck you. Alright, so here's that speaker I was telling you about. As you can see, it's rough, and the little cardboard guy disintegrated, but I've got the alligator clamps hooked up to it, and we got a 9-volt right here, and if we touch, tips. We have speakerage. So the speaker's good, so I'm going to worry about that. Well, I do have to worry about it, but not a whole lot. And I think I can get it to dirty dangle like that. We can see, yeah, diaphragm's fine. So that will speak. It ain't pretty, and it will probably sound horrible. Just look at that crunchiness. But it will speak. So I'm going to insulate those wires up there just because I don't like the way they look. And then we will put that back together, and I am not even going to bother to check that one because if this one works, that one works. Alright, that's good to know. Alright, so the basic plan here with the hacksaw is that I don't have one. Alright, so that's what I was able to do. They are somehow shockingly like within 1/8 of an inch in all dimensions, and I just eyeballed that, so that's fucking weird. But anywho, with any luck, these will fit in there and not destroy the radio. Also, as you can see, I sanded down the teeth on one side and I just cut the teeth off of the other side. So hopefully those will just jam in there, and I think you're supposed to like pop one, pop the other, and then it comes out. And the faceplate doesn't, the faceplate comes off of this Sony. It's a CDX3100, but the plastic trim does not. As far as I can tell, that is stuck to the unit. So don't try and pull it off, because rip the plastic right off the unit. But anywho, we're gonna jam these in there and we'll see if something happens. By George, it actually worked, and I had those like bang on. I couldn't have made them any smaller. Oh man. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to depress this little tab right here. And so what this guy, you go in there sort of diagonal, and then you turn it, and then it blocks it. And then you can just sort of grip the radio and pull it out. But also you have to put the thing into low. So, you know, make sure you're not parked on a hill, or put your parking brake on, or chalk the wheels or something. And it also helps if you pull the ashtray out too, because you can get your mitts in there. And this is the first time I've pulled this out, so we're going to see together what the hell it looks like behind here. And, well, it actually looks like it was professionally done or something. There's like shrink wrap and everything. Huh. Just a radio and just a standard plug. So I think if I'm lucky, I might be able to buy just a new Sony radio. Oh yeah, that's Crody though. And just plug that sucker straight in and not have to do anything. I'll look into like a Pioneer or one of the other cheapo ones just to see if I can save like 30 bucks. Ooh, is this a fuse on here? And maybe we can just like, even if I have to change a harness, it shouldn't be hard so long as the wires match up. Anywho, that was not the rat's nest I was expecting. That is nice. That's like professionally loomed and everything. Look at this. Wow. Oh no, that's just the factory loom. Oh, we do have a butt connector though. Rip. Anywho, I also looked into this fader, and so we have a little bit of a small issue if we try to bypass this. I thought I could just like take this out and then just like run jumpers into the plugs, or just cut the plug off and wire nut it. But that's actually can't work with this radio system. That's because this is a potentiometer, or rheostat, and it's actually splitting the voltage, and it's also an inline resistor. So these are 4 ohm speakers, one in each corner, and this thing in the W123 has a shared ground. So it has, and it also has, the power is also shared as well. So the factory radio sends out 2 power wires from the OEM radio. They go right to this fader, right into the dead center of the fader, and then it splits off into right rear, front rear, right rear, front right, and then front left, rear left. And so you have one side, and you have power coming in the middle, and then splitting off to each side on the front and back. And if you take this fader out, and you just wire nut the things together, the speakers together end up pulling way too many amps. So these are 4 ohm speakers. They pull, what is that? I think 3 amps on their own. So if you hook up this fader, if you just hook them up in parallel, then they join together and they actually pull, I think it's like 6 amps for each side. And the head unit just can't deliver that power. It's like you're running 2 ohm. It's like you're running 1 2 ohm speaker on either side. So to combat that, I could wire nut this together, but I'd have to get like 6 or 8 ohm speakers. I don't even know if they make 6 ohm. And that's a lot of work and money. So what I can do, however, is I can just take these 2 power wires that run right in the middle of this, and I can just hook them straight into the front speakers. And then I can just take the 2 power wires coming from the rear speakers, and I can just splice on new wires and plumb them up to here and plug that in the back, because this has dedicated 4-channel. So it's got, I think at least, yeah. So it's got 8 wires coming out of the back there to feed each speaker. And then I have to go find wherever the grounds are back down in here, and they're actually spliced together. So the front wire comes down and the rear wire comes up, and then they're soldered together to a common wire that then runs up to the factory radio. So the front and rear share power, and they also share ground, but the ground wires are not hard fit, or the power wires are not hard fixed together, but the ground wires are hard fixed. So you have to go find where that ground wire is up in here for the rear speakers, and just the rear ones, and cut it off. And then you have to solder on an extension, plumb that up here, figure that out and get all that wired up. And then you also have to extend the power wires from the rear speakers and then plumb that up here. And anyway, it sounds really complicated, and it was really hard for me to wrap my brain around, but I finally figured it out and what everything meant, because I don't know anything about speakers or impedance or any of that or garbage. So I just figured all that out this afternoon, and hopefully I can just buy a new radio and throw it in here and not have to worry about it, and buy a can of contact cleaner and clean up this rheostat, and it will not fight me, because it was sort of working, but it also wasn't working. And since it's a resistor, it should just be bad contacts and not like something horribly wrong with it. And I think theoretically, if I wanted to keep all the factory wiring the same, I could just get like some resistors and just like put them in line, but they'd have to be some huge resistors. But anywho, I am glad that this came out and that I don't have a massive rat's nest to contend with. So I am actually going to check that fuse down in there, because I suspect that guy blew. Is that a 50? I thought that was supposed to be a 10. So anywho, I'm going to look at that real quick. The fuse is fine, by the way, so I don't know why the radio shit the bed. Alright, so I've got this 12-volt battery that came out of an APC, and I just have that hooked up to 2 of the wires. I'm assuming black is ground, but who knows, Germans? So I'm just going to touch these 2 together. This is a 12-volt battery, and it should do something. In fact, it doesn't. I've already hooked this up in all 3 possible combinations as well. So black to white, black to gray, and gray to white, and it hasn't done anything. The only thing I haven't done is reverse polarities. So I will try that next. But so far, nothing. Alright, so we're back to working on the mirror. I stripped down as far as I could to brass tacks, and I kind of lubricated everything, and I've been playing with it and hooking it up to 12 volts, and either the 12-volt battery I have just doesn't have enough oomph, or this motor is just foobar. I can get it to kind of make whirring noises, and then it just kind of stops. So I'm thinking that battery just doesn't have enough amps. I mean, it was a bad battery, so I don't know. I never even bothered testing it. So I might go grab one of the car batteries and try that, but I also kind of don't want to, you know, set this thing on fire. But anywho, in the interim, I'm trying to fix this guy, and my general plan is to just make kind of like a linked extension that I can hook the spring onto. It's a son of a bitch spring too, so that's going to be really fun. It also seems like everything bolts in like on top of the spring too, so not really looking forward to that, but we will do that. I only had one shot at this because I knew I was going to break my bit the second I drilled through, and I did. It came right down and went bink, bink, snapped. But we did a 7/64, I drilled a hole in there, and it walked as I drilled it, so we're kind of in the worst possible fucking place we could be. But I can hope, and if this breaks off again, I'll drill one up here. And what I have done for a link is I have taken some about 3 foot of lock wire, and I have just spun it into my own 4-stranded steel cable. And we're going to thread that through here and then loop it back around and just kind of, I think I might be able to get it through there twice. And then we'll twist it all up again and basically make an 8-strand link. And that'll give us a little tiny hook down in there that we can stick the spring into. And hopefully that should hold everything together. And if that doesn't work, I'm just going to get a big fat fucking glob of JB Weld. And we are just going to JB Weld that bump stop straight to the damn frame. Alright, we have a partial success. So hooking up gray to white, I can get that mirror to move, which I think is the up-down. So alright, there is some modicum of success. And if I reverse the polarity, it runs the other direction. So we have the motor partially working. Alright, so it turns out gray is the common wire. I don't know whether that means that is common power or that is common ground. I don't know what. But we got the other one kind of working. It's struggling, but it's going. But anywho, it's kind of working. So we at least know that it is this guy that is kind of fucked up, and not necessarily the switch. But anywho, I did kind of tie this on here, and you see that's what I'm going for. I've got those 2 loops there that I can hook the big ass spring on, and I also just kind of wrapped it around here to try and give me a little bit of resistance. And I'm hoping that I can just kind of hook the spring onto there and then latch it back over here. And then there's a bunch of other crap that there's like a plate that goes on back of here that the motor clamps onto, that the spring pushes up on and tensions to the back of this. And then you got the plate that goes on the back and all that other stuff, and that clips into this with a rubber thing that goes all the way around, and somehow the rubber's still pliable and it's not ripped. But we'll try and put all that back together, but I don't really have high hopes. Also, it's kind of a pain in the ass to put that one particular screw in, and I think you're supposed to take this thing off, but it hasn't wanted to come off, and I haven't forced it. So yeah, we're not going to take that off. So that's going to be the first spring that goes in, first screw. Alright, so this actually went back together, and my harebrained idea has worked, and for the moment it is holding itself together. So let me show you what I was talking about. So turns out this plate is actually supposed to sit on these 3 studs, and since this spring was popped off, it had fallen off and was rattling all around, and it just was awful. But since I had all this apart, I noticed these 3 studs, so I was able to drop this down on those studs. I was wondering what these holes were for. And then I have hooked the spring into that cable I made, and then hooked it back over here on this stud, and that's firmed everything up. So now I can finally put everything back together. Also, I got the voltmeter, and I tested this battery, and it is like 12.2, so it doesn't have a bad cell, but I think it just has low capacity. I got it to, make a whirring noise, and then it just kind of shut off. So anywho, I just grabbed the chain lube and just lube the heck out of those guys in there, and we will see if those do anything when it's hooked up, to a 950 cold cranking amp battery going through a bunch of old grody rusty cables, and we'll see if this thing actually moves when it's installed. But we have gotten it firmed up so that it can stay in place, so that I can actually adjust the mirror, because at the moment the mirror just kind of does this against the door and I can't see anything out of it. And I at least want it to work partially, and if this doesn't work, I'm gonna just go buy like a generic like 1960s truck mirror and then just like self-tapper that to the side of the car and then fill it with spray foam. Alright, well this guy appears to be reassembled and back together, so I'm just gonna huck it in there, fired up, and as you can see, We get nothing out of the mirror, up or down. I've got no idea where it's adjusted, but it is actually straight. So I'm actually going to go drive around a little bit, because why the hell not? I already got it fired up, need to charge up the battery anyway. I need to run the raccoons off the bird feeders, so... Man, it is like an incredibly different car. Just, it's amazing what having an adequate amount of gas in your fuel tank and a transmission that actually knows when it's supposed to be shifting will do to making your car have adequate amounts of fuel and shift correctly. Who'd have thunk? Alright, if you recall from a prior episode, that guy don't work, and it's a little kind of broken now. So since I'm on this like electrical bent, because it's something I can do in my room when it's cold and raining out and dark, I think I'm going to pop this guy back out and see if I can fix it. And if I can't, I think I'm just going to pop this knob out and just hotwire in like a two-way or a three-way toggle switch, and an on, an off, and a different on. And see if we can get that to work, because I would just like to have like an on and then also like a door jamb on. And if it doesn't auto shut off, then I don't really care. I'll just leave it off. So yeah, I'm gonna pop that out. I think it should just be a little bit of knife action up in ya. Something like that. There we go. And we will unplug that. Well, it'll just self-unplug, I guess. And we'll look at this PCB in here, as well as the switch, and see if, you know, something can be done about it or not. And maybe, just maybe, I can buy a replacement for this. Probably not, though. So, probably going to be a toggle switch. Okie dokie, so I was able to successfully disassemble this guy. Not too much to it, but it's kind of a pain to get apart. There's these little spring-loaded tabby guys down in here, and you have to depress this tab on the side in order to pull them through those slots, and they're kind of back up in there. Thankfully, I've got this Traveler, or this pick set, so I was able to just kind of use this guy to depress the thing. I was originally trying to shim it with my lockpick set, and that was not working. But really, you just need something pointy. Something with a hook is nice as well. So you pull those four guys just straight out, and then you are able to depress these two little tabs that hold in these guys, which then run power to the light bulb. Once you do that, you can just pull this, kind of wriggle it out like this, get that out, and then this whole mechanism falls apart. And then this is, I think, the crux of the problem, is you have this knob that you turn by hand, and then that has a spring that sits down in there. There's the spring. It's a little itty-bitty tiny compression spring, just butthole puckered there a little bit. Thought I about lost that. And then it's got this guy who sits right here. Those two little wings sit into those two little slots, and then it sits like that. And so when you rock that to one direction, there's supposed to be a detent sitting on that spring that sits in this little valley right down in there. And so when you move that, that detent rolls over one of those bumps, and then it presses down and completes that circuit. And that one just runs through all of this complicated circuitry. Or I think the opposite, one of the two. Or alternatively, you turn it the other way and it presses down on this side, and then it's just constant power. So the other circuit has like a signal voltage coming from the door ajar stuff and the key switch and all this other stuff, whereas the other one is just power to ground. And I did test the light, and the bulb does work, but I had to I couldn't quite just jumper things in here and get it to work, and I think that's because this is an integral component to jumping all of this out. And if I really wanted to just say this is foobar, I could just solder something here to here and then put an inline toggle switch or something and just have you know, power and keep all of this the same, but I'm not going to do that. If anything, I'm going to just bypass this entire fucking thing and then just run wires straight in here and just stick a toggle switch out here, and that'll be easy. But I'm gonna try and save on this if possible. So I'm gonna try and make a detent for this. It really does not have, it's maybe a millimeter in height. I went and rummaged around in the interior junk drawer, and I found this brass tack, which is like the exact perfect size for a detent. And I also found this tiny little machine screw, but it's painted and it's got a Phillips head on it, and that's probably not ideal. So we're going to try this first. It's going to be kind of a pain to get that to stay in place. I think I'm going to cut it to length so that it's about, the shaft is about half the height of this screw, and then I'll try and roll a burr over so that I can like thread it down into the screw or the spring a little bit, and then that'll ride in right in here, and then when I rotate this one way or the other, it'll pop between detents, or it'll explode and fall apart, and then I'll just say screw it and we'll wire in a 3-position toggle switch. But I'm going to go file on that real quick and see if I can somehow get that all back together, and then that in here, and then all of this other stuff in here. And I don't know if these were supposed to be soldered, because they just sit on these contacts right here, but I may have to do that as well. They didn't really feel like they were soldered, but they look like they were soldered, so I'm assuming they were soldered at some point. We shall see. I may just like solder a wire onto these and then just like kind of like pull that up here and then solder that onto that, because I feel like soldering that onto there is going to be a little bit more of a pain, but we shall see. I think I should be able to put enough tension to pressure them. I don't know. It'll be a little fiddly, so I'm going to work on that and try not to lose it, and then catch you back here when I've got it all back together, or I've given up completely. Alright, so I reassembled that with the detent, and the detent now works. I mean, it's detenting, and I mean, all that's doing is it's just pressing down. It's not actually forming any kind of a contact. It's a little stiff because there's basically, no spring, because I just kind of bottomed the detent out. So this is just the flex of the, circuit board and this plastic wheel. But, still not working. I can make the light work. It's reassembled correctly. If I hook a lead, power lead up to, actually power or ground, doesn't matter, up to this one or this one, and then touch right here, or here, or all the way back in here, if I can fit it, we get power. Does the same here. Does the same regardless of polarity, I think, or I'll set it on fire, one of the two. Yeah, see? And it does it, no matter where this is set. That was set in the off position that whole time. So, that to me says that something with this side, the circuit from this point back, because it seems that power is getting to this side through this and this, no problem. So we don't need to worry about that. I just don't know what these other two do. I know one is a ground. I saw this one. I saw the wire connecting to ground. It was just a brown wire, and it just came out the harness and went zoop and self-tapered to the roof. So this is a ground. I know that. So I should be touching, black to there and having something happen. I'm wondering if this is like a signal voltage or something, and the reason I'm not getting anything is because I don't have a signal voltage there. I don't have power applied here. So it's not like opening the circuit or whatever. But I think this is just continuous on. So, I mean, hitting that should just turn it on. It ain't doing that. I'm tempted to just go plug this in the car real quick, just to see if it works. Because if it does, then no point fooling with everything. But I'm also fairly certain it's not going to do anything. But I would like to be proven wrong, because then I don't have to fiddle with this anymore. So I think I'm going to go do that real quick. Alright, I don't know what I did, but I got the door ajar light to work. And I mean, I have been fiddling with this for like 5 minutes, And I got the voltmeter out and I checked. Alright, and so this brown one is a ground. You can see it's just literally self-tapered to the roof. So that is the middle of the flat ones. And then this one, the red one, as well as that far one over there, are both constant 12 volt because I had them on with the key off. Let me shut the key off, see if it still stays. Yeah, still stays on with the key off, but those were both constant 12 volts, which makes sense because one is to this circuit and the other one is to just this one up here. This guy doesn't seem to do anything. Let me see if I can turn this on and then hit this. Okay, yeah, so the door ajar takes precedence right now for some reason. I have a feeling it shouldn't. But whatever, I guess, I don't know. This might be its own separate circuit. But I'm just gonna touch this and see if it breaks again. Oh, that was in the middle position. Huh, interesting. I think if I do like that, we'll have a door ajar light, at the very least. And I've just jammed some aluminum foil in this one because you saw that that one was busted. So I think for the time being, I will go do some more research. And I'm just going to leave this as is. And I will see if it just continues to work or if it breaks the first time I hit a bump. It would be nice if it just stayed working. Alright, so just real quick before work, I just popped out the fader rheostat as well as the window switch. And so I'm going to take these with the voltmeter and test them out and see if they are functional. Or this guy, I think if I'm lucky, I can pop it apart and clean it. I really do not want to get inside of this because it's got a wound resistive wire. But that could be blown. But we should be able to test it. It says it's a 40 ohm potentiometer, so I should be able to touch here to here and read 40 ohms and touch here to here. Oh God. Other side to other side, get 40 ohms, and then set this to wherever the hell it is. Bam, dead center. And touch center to side, center to side, center to side, center to side on all four of those and get 20 on each of those, theoretically. And if we get that, then we know this is fine. And if we get something, if it overloads on any of those, then we know that we have a blow in the resistive wire, and then we have to replace that. So that would suck, but they're not that expensive. I think I can get one for 25. This is the window switch. It should theoretically just be, contacts. I guess a central hot, and then like ground to this side, ground to this side, ground to this side, ground to this side. So up or down would just reverse the polarity coming out of those posts, and left to right would just reverse the polarity coming out of the other posts. So anywho, should theoretically be able to test that with like a 9 volt. So we will do that. Okie dokie, so we're tinkering with this, and I'm just confirming that the fader switch is fully functional. And I believe it is, mostly. So what I've got right now is this central post is hooked up by alligator clips over here to the positive lead. So they're independent of each other, so I can do that. And that just makes it so that I can film this one-handed. And then I have the ground lead, and I am just going to touch that to both of these over here independently to show you the ohm reading that this is giving all the way to the rear and all the way to the front. Or it's reversible, so it doesn't really matter. And I've just got this set to 200 ohms. So this is a 40 ohm rheostat, so I should not see a value any higher than like 50 because they're not perfect. So when I connect over here, I should see something around like 2. Actually, wait, hold up. Okay, no, I should see something somewhere around 40, but it's showing 100. And that's because this thing's a little funny. So if you just give it a little touch like that. Okay, there we go. Now it's working. I backed it off just like a little bit, maybe like 1/8 of an inch. And now it's reading in the correct range. And if we go down here to the other side, same dealio. So that is with all the power being sent to this leads right here. So the resistance over here is 40 ohms. As you see, it even said so. So over here, the resistance should be basically nothing. That's probably about right considering where I've got that placed. See? Yeah. So they're reading evenly, so it's right. But if I take this and pull it all the way forward, should read about 2 or 3. There we go. So yeah, so that side's working. But oddly, for whatever reason, if I pull it too far forward, the resistance, we'll see now it's working just fine. It's just going to make a fool out of me. So if I turn this one all the way that way, we should get the reverse effect. It should be around 40 on this side. See, it's going to be high again now. It doesn't really matter because this is the side where you're not sending the speakers. I think if you just bump it a little bit. One side was like, yeah, see, there we are. Doesn't like being at full lock. But I guess if, you know, the side that you're, you know, fading away from has like really high resistance, doesn't really matter. And there we go. Low resistance on the front and low resistance on the front. And the resistance of, you know, the alligator clips and these leads is probably about 2 or 3. So yeah, that makes sense. So this guy is fine. I think I'm just going to spray a bunch of contact cleaner just like into the guts and then just do some of this and then test it again just to see if I can break up some of that corrosion. But the fader is functional, so any screwiness we're getting, other than when it's at like full lock, probably to do with either the corrosion that's in here or just the speakers being borked and the wiring being borked. Oh, other thing I need to check is set this right here to the middle position. Alright, so we are clipped to the middle leads now, and so we're going to test, you know, impedance in either direction. So this is kind of the default state of this guy right here, is where it is, and that splits the, you know, 50-50 front rear. So we should be getting about 20, and we're getting nothing. So that's a good sign. It was kind of weird. It was kind of screwy with the way it faded. So yeah, now it's telling us we're getting nothing, so let me make sure we have good ground. We do, so I don't know what that's about. Check the other side. And now we're getting like 20 to the other side, so that's weird. And that one's giving us 40. And that one's giving us nothing. So it looks like the middle is like worn out or something, or hyper corroded. I think it sat like this, and so it developed a bunch of scuzz. So if we just kick it a touch forward, I wonder if it'll read right. Should be like, now we're just getting it really high. Alright, let me see if I can show you some of the screwiness. So I have got this hooked up, you know, like yonder. So if I turn this all the way forward, it should be something close to basically 0. And it is not. Back it off a little bit. Goes down a little bit. Then it starts going up. And when it's at the middle position, it should be about 20. See, we're going down now for some reason. We're going up. And we get really high. Then it stops working. Oh. Kind of works. Should eventually bottom out at about 40. Let's just jump to the end. Yeah, so it seems to be fine. Odd. What I think is happening is there's a bunch of corrosion on this resistive wire, and we have basically a contact floating on that wire, moving back and forth. And what I think is happening is there's a whole bunch of corrosion on there, and it's just giving really weird, like, continuity issues, so the resistance is all screwed up because sometimes it sits on a corroded spot and there's no power flowing through. Then you move it forward and it sits on a good spot and you get the correct amount of, you know, power flowing through it. And then you move to the next one, and then I don't know, somehow there's a short in there. I guess it's cankered up and it's running along the wire or something like that. And then you run it to the very, very end, and then it hits a solid contact, and then you get an appropriate voltage or appropriate resistance. Alright, so I popped the window switch apart, and it's a little more terrifying than anticipated, but thankfully I figured out how to get the thing back together. So, anywho, very German looking. This guy sits in here like that, and then this guy sits in here like that. And then these little copper dumbbells sit in here, and that plunger sits in the middle of that thing. Don't really know why there's, oh, I guess because it needs variable spring tension down here in the middle. So this guy fits down in here like that, I think, yes. And so this can go in one of two ways, and this can go in one of two ways. So really you have a 50-50 shot of getting this in correctly. But since there's only 3 of these dumbbells, you can mess it up. And I believe that this side is the side that's supposed to line up with that empty spot because there are no roll marks on it. See right there, there's like 4-way tracks on these 3 sides, but not on this one. So I assume it goes in like that. And then I think this is the side that points to the front of the car, but I might be remembering that wrong. So this is grungy, but it's not super grungy, and I actually ohmed it out with the voltmeter. So this was the ground right here as far as I could tell, and then when I hooked a lead up to this, and then moved the switch down, I got no resistance. And then when I did the reverse and moved the switch up, I got no resistance. So these were like, so the switch made the contact between here and here, or here and here, when you move the thing up or down. And so that would tell, you know, send polarity, you know, current through here or through here, or I guess it would be through here, one of the two. However, when I hooked up a lead to this center one and then touched it over here, it was full continuity until I moved the switch left. Then I had no continuity, or I don't remember which of these was left or right, but if I moved it one way, this one lost continuity. If I moved it the other way, nothing happened. If I switched it over to here, the reverse happened. If I moved it the other way, this lost continuity, and then if I moved it this way, nothing happened. So I don't really understand how that's supposed to work then. I guess if I study this long enough, I will figure it out. But it seemed to me that this side was working perfectly, normally, as one would expect a switch to work. You know, there was no continuity here, just ambient. But then when I connected that to that, but then when I moved the switch in one specific direction, I'd get continuity here. And then the same would be true over here, but it would be in a different direction. And then these guys just had continuity. So I don't know if those are supposed... I don't understand. I gotta look at this. Figure out how this is working. So I guess each one of these silver marks is a stud. So I'm gonna start this for a while and figure out if I can determine how this is working. And then you also have to keep in mind that this guy is flipped upside down like that, and then these things move in the opposite direction you think they are, because you move this down and this moves up, which moves this guy up on here, and then you've got this dual post doohickey that's sliding around. So anyway, I'm going to study this for a bit, and I'll let you know if I figure something out. Alright, so I cleaned all that up. I discovered a secret technique. If you just take some like rubbing alcohol, just some hand sanitizer, and you just squirt it like onto a paper towel or some other, or cotton cloth or something like that, and you look at a grungy like piece of copper like that, you can just rub the rubbing alcohol just straight into it, and it just takes all the grime like right off. So I did that, cleaned up all the little barbells and as well as the copper circuitry in there, and I just put it back all together. As far as I can tell, there's nothing wrong with this thing. It all looks good, all the parts are there. Just want to show you real quick that it is indeed working. So I've got it hooked up on the side with 3 posts, the center and the, I guess, the bottom. So if I hit up, look at that. Circuit is complete. Hit down, nothing. However, if we take this guy, we hook it up right there, and we do the reverse, down gives us continuity, up gives us nothing. So I'm wondering if like maybe over here that these are actually grounds. So we have power coming in with 2 of those, and then we have like interrupted ground. So let's see if doing this side to side does anything. Oh, there it is. That's exactly what it was. So yeah, so now it does make sense. So you actually have power coming in here and here, I think, or I probably have it backwards, but this, and this are all the same, and this are the same, whether that's power coming in or ground going out. It doesn't, conventional current flow versus actual current flow, it's all messed up anyway. Just know that these two over here are same as the middle. So I'm assuming since there's 3 of them, it's probably a ground. Yep. See there? Oh, that one's got some resistance. Oh, she's getting over it. Yeah, there she is. She's better now. So, yeah. This guy, and this guy are all the same polarity. And this guy are the same polarity, assumedly. Something like that. Again, not an electromagician. So I think this is fine. So I think the problem is probably just, a horrible ground somewhere in the system. And the motor's being totally trashed. So I just won't worry about the side view mirror then. And this guy, I might squirt some hand sanitizer in here and just do some of this. And then test it out again and see if that does anything. You're not going to believe it, but the hand sanitizer worked. So I just squirted some into the sides and underneath this thing and then just spun it around a bunch. And it looks like it carried itself down onto the resistive wire and cleaned all the crud off. And now we're making good contact. Either that or it's just acting like a gel and it's, acting like a conductive paste and just conducting, power. And another thing interesting I noticed, which explains a big question I've been having, just pondering how this whole fader system works, is your resistance bottoms out at 2 ohms, and it does so in the center position. So all four possible connections from center to side, when you put it here in the middle position, it reads 2 ohms. Like, it doesn't matter which one I hook this up to, it reads like 2.5 ohms right here dead in the center. If I go one direction, it doesn't change the whole way till I bottom out. Where conversely, if I put it here in the center and I go the other direction, the resistance increases. So I'm wondering if there's like 2 resistive wires and 2 separate contacts or something. I don't know how this works. If there's like a gap, if the resistive wire is like a full 360 and there's a gap or something like that, so that, you get a bunch of resistance when you go one way, but then the other one is just on a straight contact the whole time or something like that. And if you turn it back the other way, it does the opposite. It's weird because it's 40 ohms the whole way across, and it's 40 ohms when one is at one end and one is at the other. So I'm wondering, I guess it would be like a resistive wire that's like half, how far does this rotate? I think that's a little bit more than like, I think that's like 270 degrees or something. So I wonder if it's like a resistive wire halfway and then just a flat contact on the other, and then a flat contact on the other side or something like that. And I don't know if it's got 2 points or something like that. So when you have, so this guy is connected to one side of it, and when you're all the way over here, up through here, it's on just a flat contact, and then it gets onto the wire, and then simultaneously the other side jumps onto the contact the other way, something like that. I don't know, but I don't think it's a continuous resistive wire the whole way around, because it should be linear from this side to this side, but it's not. It's linear up to the middle point, and then it's continuous after that. So that explains to me, because I was wondering, because if this was a continuous resistor the whole way through, then you would, when you're playing both speakers, you would have an additional 20 ohms of resistance on both sides. And what this is trying to accomplish is it's trying to up the resistance, because you have the 2 4-ohm speakers in line, which works out to 2 ohms, so you need to put 2 ohms of resistance in line so that they stay underneath, or they stay over 4 ohms. So I think what this is doing is you have the 2 speakers branching off, and then you have 2 ohms resistance in either side, and then it runs down to a 4-ohm speaker. So you've got, each series is 6, so you have 6 and 6, and then you have these two in parallel with each other. What this is trying to do is it's trying to throttle resistance. So if this just provides a continuous, 2 ohms to both sides in this position, that, throttles both sides, and so you don't get, an overcurrent situation, burn up everything. So that's interesting. So that's how they're accomplishing that. Because I was wondering, because you would have really, really quiet speakers if you were having to run through 20 ohms on both sides. So what this does is it basically, when you switch, all this really does is it just shuttles more power towards the front or rear speaker. It doesn't like take away, it's not like it's splitting power right now. It's power is running fully through both sides, and when you do this, you're just basically restricting this side, and when you do this, you're restricting this side, rather than opening this side more and restricting this side more. So you feel me? So it's like you have two circles like this, and they're both like that, and they can only get this far open. And in a regular pot, what you would be doing is you would be making this one wider and this one smaller to shift the percentage of voltage. But with this, what you're actually doing is you have both holes, and they're both the same size, and when you go to one side, it just shrinks the other one. So your resistance is actually going up in no matter which direction you turn it. It doesn't stay constant, because in a regular pot you have the constant resistance from it flowing through both sides. It would add up to 40. With this, you're getting 2 on one side and 40 on the other. So it's just kind of making it so that more power is moving through one side or the other just because of the relative resistance. Anyway, again, not an electro magician, but that answers my question. So they have it limited so that you, in the center position, you get 2 ohms on both sides, which then adds another 2. So when you have these two speakers in parallel, they're 2 ohms, and then you put this in the middle, it's another 2 ohms, so it makes it 4 ohms, so then you don't blow out the radio, burn out the amps in the radio. So that's how they do it. Interesting. Also, this works now, so good. Don't know why the power mirror doesn't work, though. We'll assume bad ground and leave it there and then never touch it. Okay, so I figured out a better way to explain what my stupid monkey brain couldn't figure out how to say, and that's, I have this set to the middle position, and I've got these two leads hooked up to either side, and then both of those to the ground, and then we'll touch red here, and you see resistance is about 1 ohm. If I move this all the way to one side, touch it, still about 1 ohm. If I move it all the way to the other side, make contact, still about 1 ohm. So as you can see, the total resistance does not change. And when you have it right there in the center, it is basically nothing. So you're getting when you have it in the center, you're getting the same amount of resistance to each one of these lines, each one running to its own speaker. And because of that, the amount of resistance, the extra resistance that this thing is adding, which is this is a $10 Harbor Freight, multimeter, so don't expect it to be accurate to 1 ohm. That's adding that, in line with everything else. So you're actually raising up the impedance just enough that it's not going to burn out your amps. Because if you just hook the two speakers up in parallel, it would pull too much current through this one wire and through the one channel of the amp. However, if the radio is wired up so that the two wires come out and then join together and then run into this and then split out again, it's basically just mono, and it's, not really, you're getting, dual power out of the radio, so it's not going to burn up the amps anyway, but I digress. With the original system, with their 2-channel, that is how they were avoiding, setting the amps on fire, because they were like 4 ohm amps. So anywho, that is how they're doing it. So, yeah. So that is good to know. That answers that burning question. And we'll probably just bypass that anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think that anti-fog I put on lasted more than like fucking 5 days. Shit's already fogged in the Mercedes, and in the truck, and in the Jeep. Kinda worthless. I mean, honestly, if anything, it's worse in the Jeep, because it fogs up, and then like the fog runs down, and it just like leaves like a residue on it. Honestly, I think it's worse than just cleaning the windows. That's disappointing. Alright, so I was looking around online and I found a $20 radio And then it occurred to me, hey, maybe I don't want to spend $20. So I decided to come in here and check the fuses and see if, maybe the radio fuse is blown. Or maybe the power mirror, fuse is blown. And maybe that's why the power mirror and the radio aren't working. And sure enough, come down in here. And, yep, broken. So I think that's an 8 amp fuse, so I'm going to swap that out for a 16 because it says you can do that. And also the sliding roof is also blown, so I think I'm going to swap that out too. So I have another old school 16 amp that I think I'm going to throw in here, and I've got a newer 16 amp that I think I'll throw in here. And yeah, we'll see if the radio works and if the power mirror works. Hey-oh, look at that. Radio works. And the fader works now too. Nice. Except when you go that far. Nice. So I guess I can do this now. So, alright, quiet now, Santa. So let's see if power window works, and if I put this switch in backwards. Or if we just suddenly blow a fuse. It tried. I'm not going to push it any further because I'm out of fuses, so. Alright. But it works! It works! It works! Thank you, Santa! It's a Christmas miracle! Alright, so now that the radio works again, if I can make it work again.
Happy holidays. Hey, I'm a dog.
Now I can finally show you what the beep boop is. So, pull the key out the ignition, wait a couple seconds. There's the beep boop beep boop. However, if I put the key in the ignition, roll her over to ACC, I probably shouldn't just be rolling glow plugs like that, and then we pop the front panel off of the radio, it shouldn't beep boop beep boop. You see? No beep boop. It's an anti-theft feature. I don't know why taking the front panel off of your radio is an anti-theft feature. I guess so that people can't look in there and go, oh, he's got a Sony, I'm gonna steal that, rather than, oh, he's just got a Pioneer. What a cheapo. I guess. But apparently they considered that an anti-theft feature, so they made it beep boop if you forget to take the faceplate off. Don't ask me. It was the 90s. It was a different time. Hey-o, I may or may not have forgotten to film an outro or 2 or 3. So this is the outro. So if you like what I'm doing here, go down there, like the video, comment, tell me what else you want me to see due to this pile of shit. I can't promise that I'm going to have any motivation to do any of it, but I'll at least maybe read it, potentially. And if you want to see the rest of the series and see me eventually drive this stupid thing to a place and then back home to use this automobile as a means of personal conveyance, what a radical idea. Go down there and smash that subscribe button. And until next time, Tom out.